Ryu said, "These people did nothing wrong." Ryu's voice was simple, but it carried weight. To anyone else, Ryu's words might sound noble, but to the Archangel, they were nothing short of absurd. The plainness of his defense grated like salt on Raguel's sense of justice. Raguel saw him as a criminal, a murderer of angels. To him, Ryu's concern for the mercenaries was akin to a mass murderer caring for a stray dog. He said, "Ha, the irony. A filthy sinner like you saving others." Raguel's look of disbelief quickly morphed into a sinister grin. His eyes glittered with a cruel promise, saying, "Well then, how about this? I'll kill every one of these mercenaries you care about. Let's see how you feel about that." Ryu smiled inwardly, composed outwardly, every fiber of his being a study in restrained power. And he said to himself, what a simple-minded fool. He had successfully baited the Archangel into playing right into his hands. The battlefield held its breath. Fate itself seemed to pause at the hinge of that smile, waiting to see which way the scale would tip. Then the forest shuddered as 4 consecutive explosions ripped through it. Ancient trees snapped like brittle bones, and the earth itself caved in, forming an endless gaping pit. A lightning-like flash tore across the clearing, incinerating everything in its path. The air crackled with heat and destruction. Yet strangely, not a single speck of ash touched Ryu or the mercenaries standing behind him. His clothes remained spotless, their armor unscorched. High above, Raguel's wings spread wide, his face twisted in irritation. His voice thundered in the sky, "Ha! You're really struggling to escape, just like a rat." His expression contorted with frustration as he watched the dark scythe swoop again, snatching yet another group of mercenaries from the brink of death, 30 already. Inside, Raguel was seething, and he asked himself, "This damn bug, how does he avoid every single attack?" He had boasted earlier, declaring proudly that he'd kill all the humans except the one wielding the Black Scythe. But reality slapped him hard. He hadn't killed a single human. He had used his skills. He had swung his holy sword with his own hands. He had unleashed wide-scale destruction. And yet, every single time the Black Scythe intervened, saving someone at the last possible second, it felt like the weapon could predict his moves, always anticipating, always one step ahead. He added, "I have to admit the guy's speed is something." Raguel's pride throbbed painfully. He couldn't let this humiliation continue, and he said, "This won't work anymore. Letting him save more humans is a disgrace. I'll just kill them all at once with a big move." He clenched his jaw. The Black Scythe wielder might die too, but at this point, Raguel didn't care. The mission had said, "Capture alive," but honestly, whether he died here or died later in heaven, it made no difference. His lips curled in cruel satisfaction and said, "I'll just say he was stronger than I thought, so I had no choice." Raguel spread his wings wide, drawing divine energy from every corner of the battlefield. The sky trembled. Light spiraled toward his crossed swords as he raised them high. He was preparing heaven's judgment, a devastating wide-range attack. He laughed and said, "Let's see if you can save all these people at once." But what Raguel didn't know was that Ryu had been waiting for this very moment. A faint glow pulsed across Ryu's body. Hero's rune stack, 100 out of 100. All stats increased by 100 due to the hero's rune effect. You can use hero's protection by consuming 100 stacks. Ryu smirked, eyes narrowing with satisfaction, and he said, "Perfect. I've gathered the stacks just like I wanted. There's no need to stay on the defensive anymore." He looked ahead. Raguel, wide open, completely focused on gathering power. Ryu's grin deepened, saying, "It was laughable. To think he's preparing such a big move while leaving himself so defenseless. It's like he's begging to be killed." Suppressing his amusement, he shot forward like a streak of black lightning. A faint gasp escaped Raguel. Just moments before activating his greatest technique, Raguel froze, eyes wide, jaw slack, as Ryu materialized right in front of him. His expression screamed disbelief. "How is he already here?" Ryu tilted his head slightly, voice dripping with mockery. "Even though I've only been defending until now, "Isn't this a bit too careless?" he shouted. "You—" Raguel had barely uttered a word when the black scythe carved through the air toward his waist in a clean, lethal arc. It would have sliced him in two, if not for Uriel. A burst of holy light erupted between them. The blade tore through empty space as Raguel vanished, reappearing at Uriel's side. Uriel asked, expression calm but alert, "Was my timing perfect?" Raguel exhaled, clutching his chest. "Thank you. I was honestly terrified." Ryu clicked his tongue softly. On the surface, he looked irritated, but inside, he was smiling, and he said to himself, "Of course, I knew he'd save him." The rune of foresight had already shown him this outcome. He had intentionally slowed his swing, making it easier for Uriel to intervene. He added, "I wouldn't have gotten any reward for killing him anyway." Ryu had never intended to kill Raguel, not yet. He hadn't used the blessing of demons. To receive rewards, he had to kill angels after applying the blessing, and he only had one stack of the rune of demons. He needed 99 more. Ryu said, "I can't kill them if there's no profit. I need to kill 99 angels, apply the blessing, and then kill them." If he killed an archangel now, he'd lose thousands of potential stat points. That was why he had been saving humans instead of attacking. Then he asked himself, should I threaten them like I did with Remiel, force them to call reinforcements? Ryu shook his head. Raguel was too righteous, too stubborn. He'd probably choose death before negotiating. Uriel, too, beneath that composed exterior was a sharp, calculating mind. He wouldn't fall for simple intimidation. Ryu added, "Even if I said I'd spare them if they called for backup, they wouldn't believe me." He needed another way, a different angle, and as he mulled it over, the angels spoke. Uriel said, "I'll join the fight now. This is beyond your ability alone." Raguel said, "Ha! I was hoping not to rely on Uriel's power, but I guess there's no choice." Both angels turned toward Ryu, unaware of just how much danger they were in. Uriel withdrew a small dagger from within his cloak. For a split second, Ryu thought he might be an assassin, but a quick read of Uriel's thoughts corrected him. "He's not an assassin. He's a mage." Symbols flared across the gemstone embedded in the dagger as magical power surged. Ryu tensed, ready to strike, but before he could move, a golden scroll shot toward the spot where he had been standing. A massive tree behind him exploded into splinters. Uriel's expression remained cold, calm, saying, "I acknowledge your speed, but..." He began chanting another spell, his voice spellbindingly even, saying, "You won't be able to block this." The dagger lit up brilliantly, then shot forward like a bullet, whistling past Ryu's cheek, but it wasn't done. It turned mid-air with predatory precision and came at him again. Ryu said, "If I can't avoid it, I'll just have to block it." Ryu swung his scythe. The dagger exploded, blasting him across the ground. He rolled through the dirt, an unfamiliar sensation. The archangels had never managed to send him flying until now. Uriel's eyes widened slightly, inquiring, "He took a hit from the explosive dagger and barely has a scratch? What's with this guy's body?" Of course, Uriel had no idea about Ryu's title that reduced damage from divine enemies by 80%. The dagger reappeared in Uriel's hand. Ryu gritted his teeth, saying, "What a troublesome guy." Uriel was definitely more annoying than Raguel. Determined to eliminate the bigger threat first, Ryu dashed toward him while he was mid-incantation. Uriel completed the spell and slashed, saying, "Your sins shall be cleansed through death." A storm of blinding light and scorching fire erupted. Ryu twisted, barely slipping past the lethal spell. Uriel narrowed his eyes, saying, "You dodged?" "Well, just as I expected." Ryu inquired, "What?" Before Ryu could react, the dagger in Uriel's hand shone again. Another spell. Light shimmered above. A divine cage descended. Ryu was trapped inside a prison made of light. He swung his scythe desperately, but the bars didn't even budge. Uriel's expression filled with quiet triumph, saying, "It's over." Raguel exhaled, visibly relieved, and said, "Humans can never escape the prison of divine punishment." Both angels smiled. Raguel said, "As expected, Uriel, you're amazing. You managed to trap the human that even I struggled with so easily." Uriel said, "His movements were fast, but he was dumber than I thought, or rather, just as dumb as expected. After all, human action is predictable." The angels laughed openly as Ryu stood before them, laughter like silver bells that turned sour in the cold air. Their faces wore that certain smugness only immortals could afford, calm, cruel, and certain of victory. Ryu didn't answer. He only looked at them, and as the words left his lips, they sounded like a promise and a dare all at once. Death transformation. Something in him shifted. His skin darkened until the light seemed to slide off him. The air around him thickened. His aura coiled like smoke that had learned to bite. The sound of his strikes on the prison bars changed. No longer the desperate rattling of a trapped man, but the thunder of a predator testing a cage. After the fifth blow, the metal gave way with a single, triumphant crack. The prison shattered. Ryu stepped out of the wreckage as if stepping out of mist, his scythe in hand and his eyes gleaming with something the angels had never seen. One of the angels stammered, voice cracking. This can't be! The other's composure wavered, a frown creasing the perfect planes of his face. Raguel barked, panic seeping through the words. Where do you think you're going, you lowly human? He crossed his swords in a flash, summoning heaven's judgment. Uriel, cool, composed Uriel, began an incantation, hands weaving light into a spell. But Ryu was already on them. He moved like a shadow with teeth, sudden, swift, absolute. Check out the new manhwa. The loser tries to raise the five evils to be good children, but they secretly form a cleansing and killing organization.